What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the UFC show here on, of course, the Run Pure Sports channel, talking UFC Fight Night, Dern versus Hill. We've got another Fight Night card, 12-fight card on our hands. We were here last week, of course, and I think it's safe to say this one, too, a little bit lacking in star power in terms of the fights go. But, hey, still big prize pools, 100K up top, all that good stuff, and bringing it down as always with Title and Drew. Drew, let's go to you first. How did last week go, and how are you doing on this Friday afternoon?
I think overall it's pretty much spot on. I just missed up the high 7Ks. I think was like the first or second fight of the night. It was 7,700 or 7,800, busted for like 120 points, and then the next underdog was at 7,600, and he got 4 points or something like that. So my night kind of revolved around that 1v1 for the most part, but all the top end plays, I think we were spot on with, playing a bunch of the favorites and trying to mix in the underdogs. So looking forward to moving along, but yeah, it wasn't a great week overall, but I think we were on, or at least my player pool was close. I just could not get the right 6 of 6 going into the last couple fights. Luckily that last fight saved me. That helped quite a bit, but yeah, going into that, I didn't really have any sweats, unfortunately.
I think I lost you guys for a minute. Are we back together here?
You're back. Yep, you're back.
Yeah, so I guess we'll throw it to Title. I don't know if you talked to, but yeah, how did your week go, and what's going on this Friday?
Yeah, last week there's only 11 fights on the card. We lost the 12, and there's a lot of big favorites. So it was actually I didn't 150 at all. I played no MME, played some in the 555. Didn't go 6 for 6 like Big T. This card, it's only 12 fights, but a lot of closely lined fights. Outside of one fight, all these minus 250 or better, which means you can leave some salary. I expect some underdogs to come through. Little bittersweet of a weekend, and it's round 2 of the final. I lost in round 1, so it does hurt. But we got Kate Falick. We got a couple other RPS people still in there round 2. So 40 goes down to 15, and then they fly you out to Jacksonville. I think late June, sometime that. So good luck to everyone in round 2. Unfortunately, not for me, but hey, 100K up top, like you said, a good card. Excited to talk some fights.
Yeah, 100K would be a decent consolation prize for your title. So yeah, we're rooting one of you guys get to the top. Of course, we've had a bunch of success over in the RPS streets in general. The showdown, NBA showdown leaderboard last night, littered with RPS names. Pretty large split between the winners. I'll say that. Don't want to claim anyone won $1 million outright, but it was fun to see all the red up there. It was pretty close myself. Just had to do the Joker and Jamal Murray switcheroo, and I would have had a piece. But nevertheless, it was fun to see that. Baseball going on. So, yeah, if you want to join the team, you can use promo code TITLE15 to get 15% off your first payment. While you're here, please do us a favor, hit the like, hit the subscribe so you don't miss any of the free content that we bring you here on the channel each and every day. With that, let's get into this card. Title, yeah, the thing you said there, outside of one fight, second fight on the night, we'll talk about it, really a lot of closely lined fights here, which I think makes for a fun DFS slate. We'll get into all the ownerships, all that good stuff as we go through it. First fight of the night, Takashi Sato, Themba Gorimbo. This one, close to a coin flip. Gorimbo is sitting around minus 120 or so to kick us off. What do you see here between Gorimbo and Sato?
Yeah, I see a low-level fight, but a fun fight that I'll have a lot of interest in for DFS. I'm looking at it more of a clash of styles. Takashi Sato is the striker. He's got power in his hands. There's no doubt about that. 11 of his 15 wins have come by knockout. But the problem with this guy is he just never throws his hands. It's so frustrating to watch these guys when they land like 2 significant strikes per minute. He just wants to counter punch. However, Gorimbo on the other side, he made his UFC debut. It was like last month, 2 months ago, on short notice against AJ Fletcher. I didn't think he was very good. His regional tape wasn't very impressive. He is big for the division. He is long for the division. But he just came against AJ Fletcher, who was a wrestler himself, and just tried to take him down. He secured 2 takedowns, but he really didn't want to stand that range. And I think the same thing is going to be here. He's going to try and push the pace. He's going to try and get takedowns. Sato doesn't have great takedown defense. He can be controlled, as we've seen in some of his fights. So, yeah, on the feet, I think Sato can counterpunch him. Definitely has the power to knock him out. Otherwise, I think Gorimbo gets some takedowns. some top control, maybe even a submission as well. So I do think we see a finish in this fight right here in the mid-tier, very close. Playing 20 lineups, playing 150 lineups. I'll be doing both of that. I'll have both sides of this fight. I'll take the wrestler, the grappler, and Grimbo slightly. It's mainly just because I've been so frustrated watching Sato just never throw his hands. So if he connects, he can be on the optimal, but I think Grimbo has more pass, so he's my pick. I think we lost DC right there, so I'll throw it over to you, Drew. He'll be back, but what are your thoughts on this first one?
You must have got a glimpse of the inside the distance line on the next fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. Obviously, it's a clash of styles. The KO rate for Sato versus Garimbo's submission rate is basically mirror images. So you're definitely talking about a clash of styles. The ownership is pretty close. I got them both right around 20%. I have slight leverage on Sato, and it's mainly just because he is a dog. And I think there's still like some upside for finishing inside of round one. Like for inside the distance numbers, like just looking at finishing inside round one or round two, he's at 25% for round one versus Garimbo's 19%. We'll call it probability of winning in round one. So like that slight edge, it gives me a little bit of leverage on Sato for the upside. So overall, though, it's a really close fight. I score pretty closely in terms of projections. But yeah, I would have exposure to both fighters in MMA for sure.
Yeah, I think I'm back good here. Not sure what's going on with the internet here. Normally perfectly reliable, so hopefully it holds up. I'm a little worried about Sato. Like you said, he doesn't throw volume anyway. Not going to get takedowns, I don't think. And then, especially going up against a wrestler, it seems like potentially he could be even more cautious throwing his hands as he doesn't want to leave himself, exposed to getting the takedown. So it does seem like you're kind of have the one out, right, of the early knockout for Sato to really put up a big DFS score. So, yeah, I lean Garimbo slightly, but move on to the next fight on the card. It is Natalia Silva, who is the aforementioned huge favorite, sitting around minus 900 to minus 1,000 some places, minus 1,200 on FanDuel over Victoria Leonardo. I think this is one of 4 women's fights on this card. Beto, we'll go to you first. Obviously, on a card like this where there's not really any other big favorites whatsoever, I assume a lot of people are going to go to Silva here. You got to pay for 9,700. That's about as expensive as we see a fighter get. And I will say, not saying it's going to happen this time for sure, but even in her first 2 UFC fights, both of which she won, scored exactly 85 DraftKings points in both. So she hasn't scored well, even in 2 wins. We're, I assume, chalky, expensive fighter. Kind of a lot going on here. A big decision point, I think, between whether or not to play Silva or Leonardo if you're playing a single entry or whatever. So, yeah, your thoughts here: Natalia Silva, Victoria Leonardo.
Yeah, Victoria Leonardo is not really great. Silva, it's women's MMA at the end of the day. You rarely see favorites this large. I don't think you really need it. I think taking the shot on the other side in Leonardo is kind of bad because there's just so many dogs that are like 6,900, 6,800 that legit have 100+ point upside that they can win. So as far as Leonardo, I think it's an easy fade. Silva, yeah, she'll probably be 50, 55% owned. She'll be the highest owned fighter on the card in her own tier, rightfully so, with all these other close fights. But I'll probably be somewhere around 50, 55%. I mean, you're pretty much, she has the highest floor in the slate, minus 155 to finish. She is 9,700, which is expensive. But like I'm saying, you're getting 6,800 dogs that are plus 200, like money line wise, plus 300 to finish the fight. Like, salary doesn't mean as much. Silva's easy to fit. If it was last week's card when dogs were tough, a lot of favorites are above minus 300. Yeah, I wouldn't have as much interest in 9,700, but she could put up 100 points. I wouldn't love 100 points, especially at 5,500, or at 55%, because there is upside on this card from other favorites. But I would take 100 at 9,700 and take some other dogs and take my shot that way. So she's not going to beat me either way. 50%, 55%. I'll be somewhere around there. I don't think Leonardo's good. Silva's way, way better striker. As long as she keeps it at range, probably does knock out Leonardo. I'm talking minus 1,000 favorite where money doesn't matter as much. So, yeah, I mean, eat the chalk around the field. If you want to hit the lock button, do it that way, you can. I'm definitely not doing it because, like I said, 100 points, she could be optimal, but there's definitely other fighters up there in the 9K range that could put up over 100 and leave her off the optimal as well. So, Yeah, no Leonardo somewhere on the field in Silva. She'll probably knock her out.
Yeah, that makes some sense. Drew, I know you're kind of a big game theory guy when it comes to DFS. How do you approach a fight like this where one of the fighters is such a huge favorite on a card where we don't have others? Is it as simple or close to as simple as looking at what percentage of the time do you think Silva lands on the optimal, and then what is her percent ownership, and then kind of adjusting from there? Or talk us through your process a little bit on how you decide what to do when there's such an outlier fight on the card like there is in this one between Silva and Leonardo.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing in MMA is outside of a few very rare fighters, you don't see like infinite upside. Like you see the upside at 120 points, and like Title said, there's plenty of other fighters, including underdogs, that have 120 point upside. So it really comes down to ownership. Like just when I first glanced at it, it's really matching the field at the price. I think 9,700 is a bit tough to get to, and I'm not really sold on like the point scoring. Like, yeah, the win, she's going to win. It's very likely she's going to win. She's definitely going to win inside of round 2, we'll say, and probably round 1. But I don't know if the points and the actual, significant strikes adds up enough if she has a quick win to get that 140 points or something ridiculous that like you absolutely need. So I take a pretty neutral approach in terms of ownership in MMA. I'm not like it's not like in baseball where you could get this low owned stud pitcher and he goes off for like 40 DraftKings points or something like that. There's just not that big of a discrepancy with these other fighters. So the way I see it, I'm pretty much spot on with Title. I see around 50-55% ownership. I would be looking to match the field, give or take 10%. I'd have no Leonardo. I would just X that out and not even worry about it. But I do think there is a case to be made where if you fade Silva at 55%, it opens up a lot of pretty good lineup construction in the low 9s into like the high 7s that have equal upside, I think, cumulatively across all your players. So that's the way I approach it. Like I said, it's just MMA is different. Like if you could argue with me and say, hey, if she won within 10 seconds, it'd be 210 points or something like that. Then I would start to dig into. We probably just want to lock button this situation, but there's just not. I mean, I've seen guys. I mean, I don't know what he scored last week, but it was like 140 points, 130 something points. It's like as high as you see. So I know that's a long spiel, but that's how I view it. I think MMA scoring, it just kind of negates the necessity to just go overboard on this big favorites like that, because the big favorites they don't capitalize. I would equate this a little bit to tennis. Tennis is like this quite a bit. I play a lot of the different niche sports, and you'll see like an 11K Djokovic, but like his upside isn't really any better than a 9K favorite. So it's just his win equity is just better. So he's safe, but he's not going to have like a high ceiling. So it's an interesting dynamic with the point scoring for MMA and similar to tennis. I hate to throw tennis in there with MMA, but it is a very similar scoring structure.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's the only other 1v1 sport where you pick 6 people. I mean, it's as close to MMA as it gets when you talk about DFS sport.
For sure. Yeah, and I don't play as many lineups as you guys, usually between 3 and 10 lineups on most cards. But yeah, I kind of lean being maybe under on Natalia Silva here. I haven't built my lineups yet, but I'm not super convinced she's going to put up a monster score, even if she obviously does pull the win. And I'll also say this. I don't have the data to back it up, but I'm pretty sure these massive favorite women not only lose more often than the men do when you see a minus 1,000, but don't score quite as well in general, especially if they're not, dominant type of wrestlers. So, yeah, I see a few ways this maybe doesn't end up as well for Silva at the super high price tag and super high ownership.
Right, yeah.
I'll have some, but might go a little bit under the field. Let's move on to the next fight. Old friend Chase Hooper. Maybe he's been in the gym. Maybe not. I haven't seen the weigh-in photos yet if they're up. But he fights Nick Fiore here, who doesn't seem like he's anything special himself. I don't know. I'll probably not end up on Chase Hooper. I've been fading him since day one. What's he gone? He's alternated wins and losses in every single fight so far. I think he's 3-3. We'll throw it to you first, Title. Chase Hooper and Nick Fiore. What do you see?
Chase Hooper's been in the gym, man. When I was in Vegas a couple months ago for the John Jones card at the PI, right away I walk in. Hooper's following me. A couple minutes later, hit the sauna with him. He's moving up a weight class too. He was actually who I talked to the most. Really cool dude. Nice
Does he
guy.
got a plate on each side of the bar? These
He
days?
wasn't benching. Manel Kopp is the only one benching. Hooper was rolling and doing that, but he definitely can do a plate now. He's moving up from featherweight to lightweight right here, making his lightweight debut at 155, weighing at 156. You can tell he's filling in. I mean, the kid's still only 23 years old. He was pushed way too early, gave him grown-ass men. Like, the dude just couldn't strike. The UFC did him no favors. He should be walking in the UFC, making his UFC debut now or in a year or so and push him that way. But he definitely gets a winnable matchup against Nick Fiore, one of his best matchups he had. Fiore's only 25 years old. All of his wins were in round one before the UFC. He got the Jay Ellis treatment, 16 and 108 record for good old Jay Ellis. Beats him twice. So those are two of his 6 wins right there. He's a wrestler, which is why, I mean, Chase Hooper is not getting a striker right here. Nick Fiore is a primary wrestler who does have definitely good wrestling. He does have solid top control, but his grappling is not on Chase Hooper's level. His striking, yeah, probably the best way to do it. I'll take anyone striking as Chase Hooper until Hooper shows me otherwise. So I assume Fiore has better striking, but we really haven't seen it. And he's not a primary wrestler or primary striker. So I expect this fight to play out on the mat. And if you're giving me Chase Hooper at dog money when the fight is going to be at the mat against another young kid who I have some questions about, yeah, Chase Hooper's way more UFC experience, fought the better competition, hasn't looked great, but I mean, he's not going against a striker like Steve Garcia to get dropped a couple times. I think it's on the mat. If he gets reversed, I mean, if he's on top, I think fight could be over shortly. If Fiore's on top, I don't think he's doing anything to Chase or to Hooper, maybe just controlling him or something. So mid-tier fight that I expect to play out on the ground. You got to have interest in it. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm taking the dog shot on Hooper too.
So to you, Drew, what do you see? Chase Hooper and Nick Fiore.
Yeah, I think people are leaning towards Title's take. He looks to be a little bit higher owned. Chase Hooper would be a little bit higher owned than Fiore. And so I see the leverage spot on Fiore in this fight. I think the technicality stuff that Title's talking about with Hooper makes a lot of sense and obviously something to include in your process this week. But yeah, as far as like ownership goes and what you see from Vegas, Fiore gets a slight bump for me over Hooper just from a leverage spot. So I'll have a mixture of both, but it's definitely like I'll take Title's word for it that Hooper's in shape, he's ready to go. But yeah, I think Fiore comes in under-owned and provides pretty good leverage in this like high 7s, low 8s range, which is kind of sparse. There's not a ton of great upside plays littered right around 8K. So yeah, I'm pretty mixed. I like Fiore as a leverage spot.
I kind of feel like the UFC wants Chase Hooper to win this one, which does make the plus money seem a little bit enticing to me. Right, one of the youngest fighters to ever come in the UFC. He's been active, just coming off.
They've been wanting him to win fights, and he's still can't.
I know, and he hasn't gotten the job done. And I've been going against him for the most part, but coming off a pretty bad knockout. I mean, would that fight last like a minute? Yeah, just it feels like he's getting a little bit of a cupcake here. Plus money does seem a little bit enticing, but it's also hard.
So I didn't mean to cut you off. Did he have a main event like in the last year or main card or anything, or always been prelims? Because I've heard a lot of hype around him recently. I can't remember, but he lost. I remember that.
I feel like his biggest fight was Steve Peterson. Might have been on a main card. He really definitely.
But for someone with mediocre success, like that hasn't been on like huge cards. He is a memorable fighter, right? There's a reason that he's
always been talked up. I don't know.
When he came into the UFC, he was like a minus 350 favorite. I don't know if it was against like Alex. The dude came in with all the hype in the world and shit his pants right away. And from there, it's been down. Yeah. I think it was Alex Caceres.
Yeah, Alex Caceres.
Yeah. And you look at what Caceres is doing, and truly, like in hindsight, looking at that line, I mean, in hindsight in MMA, a lot stuff is crazy. But yeah, that Caceres is definitely a good fighter.
Yeah, that's Hooper Fiore. I'll be looking forward to it either way. We'll see how that ends up. We'll move to the next fight on the card. Rodrigo Nascimento sitting around minus 190 against Ilir Latifi. Let's go right back to you, Title, on this one. What do you see, Latifi and Nascimento?
Yeah, so 11 of the 12 fights, minus 250 or below favorites. 9 of the 12 fights are expected to finish, and one of them that isn't is the main event. That's like even money to finish. So it's hard to find fades on this card. This is the only heavyweight fight on the card. And yeah, I'm going to be way underweight on this fight. And if Sabre, like this is where I cap both guys, their max exposure. If Sabre gives me 0 of them in 20 entry, yeah, I'm totally fine with it. Of course, 150, I'll have some of these guys, but I'll be underweight on this fight. It's gross. Latifi fights are pretty gross. He throws no volume. His whole plan is get the takedown. He's a natural 205er. He's like 40 years old now. Throws no volume on the feet. He looks for one takedown around, and when he does get that takedown, he just lays on top of you. He has no neck where you can submit him, and 5 minutes go off the clock, and then the next round comes up, and he tries to repeat the same process. Very, very boring. As far as Rodrigo Nascimento, he's a primary grappler. He's a good submission artist. 6 of his 9 wins have come by submission, only 1 by knockout. I don't think he's taken down Latifi. Nobody takes down Latifi. On the feet, Nascimento is a solid jab. He is the bigger fighter, so I think he has the striking advantage. I think he either wins a decision, maybe a late finish, if he can keep it on the feet. Otherwise, more than likely, like maybe Latifi gets a takedown in round 1. He wins that one. Nascimento stuff's in round 2, and it's 1-1 going into a third. Like I just don't really see much scoring ceiling in this one. Latifi would need 3 takedowns, 1 in each round. He had 10 minutes of control time. That's his path, I think, for the optimal, or just no dogs win but him. I don't think that's the card for that. And as far as Nascimento, I like so many other guys in the 9K range more. Could he knock him out? Maybe, but I'd bet against that. So, yeah, not a fight I have a lot of.
Feels like a gross split decision. Shout out to our
shout out to Keg.
Split decision line on this one. Might be a couple more fights, so we can talk about that too. Drew, let's throw it to you. What do you see between these two heavyweights?
Yeah, this is interestingly enough, if I could direct anyone in regards to this fight, I would say the leverage spot is actually just fading Latifi, just point blank. Like he's going to get 20% ownership, and with everything else in this fight or in this on this slate, if you just X him out, you're already ahead of the field, assuming he loses. So I'm going to be Xing out Latifi. I'll have some Nascimento. He definitely doesn't grade out very well. I mean, he does provide some leverage, but from a raw projection standpoint, for me, he's got to be like the last one in the 9K range for sure, probably in parts of the 8s and 9s. So I definitely think Nascimento wins, split decision probably, but I think Latifi is just X him out at 7,200 and let the field buy into it, and you'll get a little bit of leverage when he loses. So that's kind of how I view it.
Yeah, makes sense. That's the heavyweight fight between Latifi and Nascimento. We'll move to the next fight on the card, Orion Koski and Gilbert Urbina. This one, another one that's pretty close to a coin flip. It is Koski, who's sitting around -115 to -120. Back to you, Title. What do you see between these two?
Yeah, another fight I have interest in. Another lower level fight, but 2 guys that I do have cardio concerns with. Ryan Kosei, he has a wrestling background, his brother as well, but he doesn't use it as much in the UFC. He has a lot of power in his hands. In round 1, he's definitely dangerous. He can mix in the takedowns as well, but in his UFC debut against Philip Rowe, wins round 1 pretty easily, gasses in the second, just gets absolutely starched after that. Then he fights Blood Diamond. Blood Diamond is no good. Kosei did not look good in that fight at all. He did win. Started slowing down in that fight. Takedowns weren't as easy as I did expect. Got beat up at range a little bit. Like, it was not a great performance. He did get the win there, though. Taking on Gilbert Urbina, I mean, I don't think Urbina is very good either, though. He's the Ultimate Fighter guy. He lost to Brian Battle. Started off good in round 1. Slowed down in round 2. He did take that fight on short notice, though. Eventually got submitted. Before that, though, he fought Trayshawn Gore, who we've seen a couple times in the UFC, hasn't looked great. Gore knocks Urbina down, I think it was like 3 times or something, ends up finishing him. Gore gets hurt, so that's why Urbina stepped in for Battle. But we haven't seen Urbina fight in over a year as well. I don't know. Like, who knows what the heck's going to happen in this one? Who has the better cardio? Kosei, I think he is more dangerous early. He can mix in the wrestling, so I do think he has more upside. In that standpoint, I'm going to pick him. I've seen him fight a little more recent. Who knows what Urbina's been up to, but I have no clue. I don't think either of these guys are top 15, probably not even top 20 guys in the UFC. Whoever has better cardio probably wins the fight. I don't think we're going 15 minutes. I think someone's going to fall off. I'll take Kosei because of his upside and his power, but yeah, I don't really know, to be honest.
Yeah, fair enough. That's Kosuke Urbina. Drew, your thoughts on these two?
Yeah, I'll keep this one pretty simple. I think they're both basically equally matched. I think ownership is fair. I don't see a bad spot or a good spot necessarily. So I'll have exposure to the fight. But yeah, I think as far as Vegas goes and where ownership is shaking out, this is one that you just want exposure to both sides. Probably max it at 50% total for the fight and 25% each fighter. That would probably be perfect MME exposure, in my opinion. So yeah, they grade out fine for that low 8s and high 7s, but they're not like there's no attraction in terms of like a GPP leverage spot. They're just a good spot, I think, for lineup construction. You got to have some.
And as Carmi did say, he was one of two fighters to miss weight, 1.5 pounds, both fighters. Orion Kosei, that is.
Yeah.
Vanessa Demopoulos was the other. So, yeah, you don't love to see that. Like, I mean, I already thought they were both gassing. It makes me feel even better. Maybe we get a finish. Who finishes? I'll be somewhere close on both of them. So, yeah.
Makes sense. Let's get to the next fight on the card. Back to the women's division. Carolina Kovacevic and Vanessa Demopoulos. You just said Demopoulos missed weight title. Any details on that? This one closely lined too. Demopoulos sitting around plus 115. Both these fighters have won their last 2 fights, so coming in decent form here. Kovacevic obviously sitting around minus 135 or so. Title, yeah, your thoughts here.
DC, we got 12 fights. 10 of them pretty much expected to finish. It's a woman's fight. I go back to my reliable, the strategy. If you haven't followed my playbook, anybody for a period of time, when it comes to close coin flip women's fights, I'll hit the fade button. Both sides, they have to do 2 things: parlay to beat me. You have to pick the winner right, and you have to get a bit. Vegas has to be wrong that it's supposed to finish. I mean, I guess a decision if they put up 200 significant strikes. We know how scoring, it feels like every punch a woman throws is deemed significant. We're not the same is it for guys. I don't know. I don't know the stats behind that, but it really feels watching it. There might be a little bias in that. Can get top control takedowns and stuff. But all these fights I can make a case for. If this was on the optimal, would I be surprised? No, not necessarily. Demopoulos has good jiu-jitsu. Kovacevic could throw some good volume, but I can make a case for every single fight. You can't play everyone if you're only doing 20 entries and below. I'm Xing this one out and all reliable. Hope it does well for me today.
The judges don't want to get canceled. They don't want to be accused of not giving the women their due on the significant strikes. They just they give them the benefit of the doubt. That's my take on that. Drew, your thoughts here on this fight?
Yeah, this is just a fade fight. Yeah, there's nothing attractive about it. It's I will say if you had to fit in an $8,500 fighter in cash, I think Kowalkiewicz is fine. But outside of that, there's no GPP upside at all from what I can tell. So this will be a click off. There's no way I'm playing either fighter. So yeah, 0% for both.
And that's where we get a slate breaker right there. And fade for
Likely,
me, fade for Drew. Here comes
DC's taking notes. DC's taking notes.
Oh, I'm happy to fade the women's fight. You don't have to talk me into that. So I'll be
This thing looks
maybe grabbing a drink there in this one. We'll move on to the next fight on the card. Might mispronounce one or maybe both of these fighters wrong. Vyacheslav Borshev is minus 160 or so against Haysher Mahashate. Yeah, not bad title. I like the nod.
Borshev. I would have said the same thing.
I like the nod of approval from title on that one. We'll count that as a win. Borshev Mahashate. Let's start to you, title. Borshev sitting around minus 165 or so.
Yeah, this will be a fun one. And the reasons like I can't play the last fight if you're only playing 20 line. Like, give me Kosei Urbina to finish. Give me Borshev Mahashate to finish. There's just so many good fights on this card that I think will finish. 2 great strikers in this one. Slavoklas Borshev. He is a striking coach, striking background. The dude absolutely mixes it up to all 3 levels. He has power. Very good. The problem with him is just, man, his takedown defense and his get-up game are not good. So pretty hard to win fights in the UFC. With how good and how well-rounded everyone is nowadays, you need takedown defense and top control, or takedown defense and a get-up game. Doesn't have that. You look at his last 2 fights, lost to Mark Diakise, Mike Davis. Definitely 2 good fighters. He was controlled for 20 minutes in those 2 fights, though, and got taken down 20 times. Finally gets a way better matchup for him against Mahashate, who Kid's only 23 years old. Really wasn't much tape going into Contender Series. I think he was a big dog in that fight too. Won a decision. Then he goes out. He knocks out Steve Garcia. Very fun fight there. Shows he has a lot of power. Good striker. Then he got taken down. Rafa Garcia got taken down like 6 times in that fight. Controlled a little bit. So both these guys, their losses are because of their wrestling defense. I don't think anyone's going to wrestle in this fight. If that's the case, I just can't pick against Borshev when it comes to a striking match. I mean, dude, he has all the background in the world. He is the older fighter. Mashate still getting better at 23, but the body shots, mix it to the head. I just think the power's more so on Borshev's side. Dude's coming into the UFC, I thought, man, anytime this guy is going to be in a striking fight, I'm probably not going to pick against him. Yeah, I don't think Mashate goes for takedowns. If he somehow surprises, yeah, I'm not fading Mashate by any means. He does have power. It's going to be on the feet. I think it's a high pace, probably a war. Someone's going to go down, I think, but I think Mashate is going to be the one going down. And what's going on, Rummy? Good to see you in here.
Makes sense. Yeah, should be an exciting one here. I do think, a bunch of these fights as we kind of get toward the main event, I think could be, throw down, knockout type fights.
It's an entertaining card, I think.
Yeah.
It's not the best name value and stuff like that, but competitive and it's a good DFS card too. I'm excited for tomorrow.
Yeah, me too. So let's throw to you, Drew. Borshev, Mashate, what do you see?
Yeah, Borshev is the guy that I will be going to at 8,800. I mean, it just really depends on what I do with Natalia Silva, but I think there's a lot of room for me to fit in 8,800. I think there's a lot of upside and there's leverage. I got him around 30% ownership. Mahashate at 22%, give or take 2% or so, 4%. I don't see honestly Mahashate. I don't have any interest in. I don't see a lot of upside. The better fighter on the feet is definitely Borshev. I think Vegas is giving him a lot of respect. And as far as upside, inside the distance numbers, he's got about a 22% chance of finishing in round 1, 40% chance inside of round 2 or round 1. So I like Borshev here. No surprise there because he's the favorite, but I do think from a GPP perspective, he actually does provide some leverage over the field for sure. Makes
sense. That's Mashate, Borshev, 3 for 3 here. What we think will be perhaps the better striker in Borshev over Mahashate. Next fight, we have Diego Ferreira and Michael Johnson, 2 UFC veterans here. 2 primarily strikers. Both guys can mix in their wrestling a little bit, but this is another one where I do think it's got a pretty good chance to stay on the feet for at least a majority of the fight. Statistically, both these guys are pretty damn close. Basically in everything, age, reach, volume of output, record, all that stuff. Johnson does have a few more losses on his record, but at least recently kind of similar results. So no surprise to see another fairly closely lined fight. It is Ferreira, who is the moderate favorite here, sitting around minus 160. Title back to you, Ferreira. Johnson, what do you see?
Yeah, like you said, another good scrap. A lot of similarities between the two. 38 years old for Ferreira, 36-year-olds for Michael Johnson. The big difference between these two is we've seen Michael Johnson fight a good amount recently. We haven't seen Diego Ferreira fight. Last fight was over 1.5 years ago. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. His last win was in January of 2020. But when you dive into that and you look at it, I mean, look who he lost to. Beneil Dariush, Gregor Gillespie, Mateus Gamera, 3 of the best fighters in the division, so there's no shame in that. But it does look like he has taken a little step back. I mean, when you're 38, taking some damage, that's probably going to happen. So the question is what Diego Ferreira comes in here. If it's somehow with Diego Ferreira in his prime, like he's going to walk through Michael Johnson. He needs 1 takedown probably. He's by far the much better grappler, Michael Johnson, just known for his striking. Thing is, though, Ferreira doesn't have great takedown accuracy. When he does get it there, his BJJ is on another level. If he gets it on the mat, it could be over shortly after. He does have upside at 8,700. Michael Johnson, though, good takedown defense, in at about 80%. Good southpaw, throws good volume. Ferreira has struggled against some southpaws too. I'm going to take the dog shot in Michael Johnson. He has been more active. I think he's the better striker. I do think he can stuff the takedowns, keep it on the feet, and give me dog money if it's going to stay on the feet for 15 minutes, no doubt. And I think Michael Johnson could knock out Diego Ferreira. If it's going to be on the feet, those straight shots, Michael Johnson does have power. I think he hurts him. I think he does. I'm going to say he puts him away. I'll say Michael Johnson by knockout in this one. But the big question, what if Diego comes in here? I'll take the dog with the question on the favor right there. Michael Johnson, he has been pretty impressive to me as of late. So, yeah, give me him.
I like the Johnson call there. Drew, what do you see between Johnson and Ferreira?
Yeah, I think it honestly really depends on what Ferreira's game plan is, because Vegas has quite a bit of respect for him on the ground. His submission number for round 1 and round 2 is really high relative to Michael Johnson's KO number. So I do like Ferreira in the fight, and I think he actually, again, similar to the last fight at Borshov at 8,800. Like if you fade Natalia Silva, I think this opens up a lot of lineups to play in this high 8K range. So I'm okay with Ferreira. I like both in my player pool. Michael Johnson, I think, is going to be steamed up a bit. I see him as high as 25% already. So I could see Ferreira coming in slightly neutral to kind of his expectation. But yeah, I think Ferreira is a guy that I would prioritize for sure. But I'm totally fine with Johnson. Like as a dog, that's fine at the price at 7,500.
Yeah, makes sense. That's Ferreira and Johnson. We'll keep it moving to another, what should be, I think, exciting fight between two guys with a lot of power, and two guys that have been both knocked out in their last fight. Andre Fiallo, actually, in his last 2 fights, was knocked out, both coming off consecutive losses, but both with some pretty spectacular finishes on their records as well. It is Joaquin Buckley minus 230 around Andre Fiallo this fight. Pretty big favorite to finish inside the distance. Yeah, I think we'll see some fireworks in this one title. It reminds me a little bit of the Matt Brown fight from last week, and at least in terms of odds, where you think they're going to throw down. And these are kind of the dog ranges on a fight that probably takes place on the feet that I like to dabble in betting and DFS wise. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Fiallo pull this one off. What are your thoughts here, Buckley and Fiallo?
Yeah, Mike Brown. I thought Corey McGee was going to wrestle a little more, but to be fair, he did try and wrestle early. Matt Brown did a good job, starches him after. Yeah, Rummy goes, got to have exposure to this fight. Somebody's getting mean. It's what it seems like, and that's exactly what you said, DC. I mean, 2 guys with a bunch of power, 2 guys have been knocked out 4 times, probably stays on the feet. I mean, if someone wrestled, maybe it'd be Buckley. It's hard to plan on that, though, but I think he might have a little more upside. I would be really surprised if it was Fiallo going for it. But, yeah, mainly stay on the feet. It is worth noting Buckley's coming down to 170 for the first time in 5 years, coming down from 185. I think it's the right move for him. I mean, he's so big in the chest, absolutely shredded. But he's 5'8". Like, for 185, I mean, he was always the much smaller guy in the octagon. So he made weight successfully. Do think it's a good move down. Maybe its durability, though, goes down a little bit. We see that with weight cutting. But, yeah, I think someone gets knocked out. Fiallo's got a bunch of power. Buckley has a bunch of power. How it comes to me is, man, Cameron Van Camp, who is absolutely cheeks, had Fiallo hurt. And I was like, yeah, that's enough of that. I think Fiallo's chin is worse than Buckley's, even though they've both been knocked out 4 times. Buckley's had multiple fights. He fought better competition in the UFC. He's taken some punches that I thought would have hurt Fiallo, whereas Fiallo, that one punch from Van Camp, I was like, man, I have no clue what to expect from this guy's chin. But yeah, give me Buckley. I think he has more forward pressure in this one. He's fought the better competition. If someone does take it down, I do think it's him. Excuse me. 9,300, 6,900 though. $2,400 difference. That's what I'm saying. 6K fighters that have all the upside in the world. Fiallo legit has 120 plus point upside. First round knockout, multiple knockdowns, which is why this card, and you can leave salary. But yeah, I'm picking Buckley by knockout.
Yeah, I assume you'll have exposure to both those fighters a decent bit with the favorite to end. And, this could easily be one that ends inside the first round. Drew, let's start to you, Fiallo and Buckley. What do you see?
Yeah, I think exposure to both these guys is totally fine. I will make the argument here where Silva at 9,700 becomes a bad play with Buckley here, and we'll just call it half the ownership. I don't know what it's actually going to shake out to, but I got him 25 to 30% for Buckley. And it's really, I mean, his knockout percentage is really not that far of a stretch from what Silva is at 9,700. So if you save $400, you get a fighter with similar odds. And honestly, at this price, I'm not really worried about money line numbers. Like Silva's money line is drastically higher, but I don't care. Like at 9,700, I don't care about a win. I just want
You just want
a
upside.
round 2 win. I want a lot of upside.
All you care is the optimal in MMA. That's really all that matters.
Exactly. So I think Buckley provides a ton of leverage over Silva. I still like Silva, but as far as like this 9K range, Buckley is the guy. Like I have him 6 points over Silva as far as my projection, which weights Vegas and inside the distance numbers. I like him quite a bit. So I think Buckley at 9,300 would be a play. I wouldn't play Silva and Buckley together. I think it would be pretty ugly. But I think in hand building, Buckley would probably be my first click, to be honest, over Silva when I'm hand building a few lineups. So fine with Fiallo. I think the upside that Title talked about and DC talked about is spot on. But yeah, for me, I think this is actually I would not exclude Buckley. I just want to make that clear. Like I think Buckley's a really good GPP play this week.
Yeah, no, I think Buckley's the rightful favorite. It's just one of those fights where I think the variance in this fight, I think if they fought a number of times, if you ran the simulations or whatever, I think Fiallo gets his hand raised early on a pretty decent portion of the time.
I think it's interesting that Buckley's getting such low ownership, at least as of now. We'll see how it goes with Silva's money line numbers and projection being bumped up because of that. So that's kind of the eyeball test that I give it is.
What's like, Fiallo's ownership looking like?
Like 30%.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably why Buckley's is kind of artificially low too, right? Because you're not going to take both these fighters.
Fiallo's ownership? I'm sorry, 25%. Yeah, sorry. Okay. Buckley, I got around 30%.
Yeah, I do like that $6,900 price tag on Fiallo. Can go a long way if he does get the job done. That's Fiallo and Buckley. Should be a fun fight either way. Wouldn't be surprised to see an early finish in that one for either fighter. 3 fights to go. Before we do, just a reminder, hit the like, hit the subscribe. If you do want to join the winners over at runpuresports.com, you can use promo code TITLE15. Title, you've got your MMA playbook that breaks down your favorite plays, breaks down each fight. Is that up on the site yet? If not, it'll be up shortly, right?
Yeah, I always wait till right after the show, just so people they have a reason to tune into the show. You don't want them reading everything, reading the playbook, and getting my thoughts. But yeah, right after this, it'll be up shortly after.
Awesome. Join us over at runpuresports.com. Promo code TITLE15. Last 3 fights, we go back to the women's division. Lupi Godinez minus 150-ish over Emily Ducote. Title, let's go back to you. What do you see here?
Yeah, the second of 2 women's fights that are expected to go to decision. I try and have at least 4 fades on all my on each card. Gonna full fight fade this fight. Of course, if you want to make a case, Lupi does have wrestling a background. She could land 10 takedowns in a fight. She's done it in the past. Thing is, Emily Ducote does have good wrestling defense as well. I think she can keep it on the feet. Lupi has had multiple fights where she forgets she can even take someone down, decides to strike. I think it mainly stays on the feet 15 minutes, probably a close split decision, something like that. You look at it, I mean, Ducote looks like by far the better play. 7,600 1K savings plus 285 to finish all that. But that's what people look at. They look at short odds. They look at inside the distance prop. They'll see the price. I think she gets steamed and becomes overowned just because of that. And we're talking 6,900 Fiallo. Yes, worse money line odds, but I'll take the upside of that 800 savings, a fight that's supposed to end in round 1 instead of a fight plus 240 to finish. So, yeah, I mean, you got to fade some fights. All reliable for me. Fade the women's fights and pray. So that's what I'll do.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense from where I'm sitting. Of course, Drew, your thoughts here, Ducote and Godinez.
Yeah, I think it's a good fight to fade. To be honest, I think I'll have 0 Lupi, and I think Ducote. I think at 7,600, like she's probably going to fit some lineups for me. The upside is still there. I just bumped up her ownership a bit, and like it's super fragile for the price, and like it starts to become pretty thin. Like as she gets 25 or 30% ownership, it becomes quickly worse and worse of a play. But as it stands now, I got her around 22%, and I think Ducote is someone that I would include. Lupi is just a 0. There's very little limited upside relative to the other fighters around here. So super simple. Neither one are going to get a ton of ownership, but I think Lupi's a good fade and Ducote is a fine fade. But I think for my player pool, I think I'll have some shares of Ducote. It'll probably be just under the field, probably like 20% is probably where I got her.
Yeah, it makes sense. Hard to go to the favorite on this card. A short favorite and a fight that's minus 300 or even more, some places to go the distance. So
Hmm.
totally makes sense there between Dakota and Godinez. Let's get to the co-main event, Edmund Shabazian and Anthony Hernandez. It is Hernandez, pretty decent favorite, especially for this card. I think the second biggest favorite on the card overall, sitting around minus 210 is Hernandez. Two UFC veterans here, two wrestlers who can definitely use their wrestling, or yeah, two fighters who can use their wrestling at times. Specifically, Hernandez has very high takedown average per 15 minutes per round, whatever you want to look at. So yeah, I think rightfully the favorite. Title, interested to hear your thoughts between these two.
Yeah, we're talking looking at like Buckley's ownership a couple fights ago and why it's so low. It's not only Silva, Anthony Hernandez right here, the good old Fluffy. He's a DFS monster. He's going to be one of the highest owned fighters too, right in that same range of Buckley. Everyone's going to want to click the Fluffy route. Man, the guy's only 29 years old. He was always been a solid fighter, but he wasn't really on the map for many until he submitted Rodolfo Vieira as a monster, or as a huge underdog, the black belt snatcher, one of the best grapplers in the world, not even just UFC, and Rodolfo. And Rodolfo just gassed. He got multiple takedowns. He had Fluffy in bad spots. Fluffy has good grappling himself. He was able to survive. And then at the end of the round one, Rodolfo had nothing left. And you can submit anyone when they're completely dead on the other side. So that was his big opener. And then, man, he's been on fire as of late. He averages 6.49 takedowns per 15 minutes. His last couple fights, he's put up 117, 120 DK points. All he does is chain takedowns. He has cardio to do it. Most people can't stuff him for that long. Good grappling. He can wrap up the neck. He's just a perfect fighter in DFS. He fights to his strengths. And it's a clash of styles because you look on the other side, Edmund Shabazian. I'm talking 6K fighters with all the upside in the world. He's right in there with Fiallo. Shabazian could come in here, get a first round 1 minute knockout, and absolutely break the slate. The kid's only still 25 years old, came into the UFC very highly touted, very good striker, very good kickboxer. How he's lost fights is takedowns, top control. He just hasn't been able to get off his back. He lost 3 in a row. Jack Hermanson, Derek Brunson were 2 of those fights, and he just got controlled for it was a lot of time in those fights. So it sucks because Shabazian, he's only getting better, I think. It's just, I don't know why he's signing on the dotted line in a fight like this. When your strength is striking, you've only lost to wrestlers that push the pace, while you have a very good wrestler that pushes the pace. Looks like a stylistic nightmare. He's lost to these in the past. Yeah, I assume he's getting better, but Fluffy, he's looked really good to me as of late. Give me the wrestler, and he's one of the best players. He has the highest ceiling, I think, on the slate when it comes to DFS because you could see 10 plus takedowns if Shabazian can keep getting up.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I do think, if it goes Hernandez's way, probably putting up a big score, whether he finishes or not, frankly. And then if Shabazian does pull the upside, he's only 6,800. And it's probably a early KO.
Knockout. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this, Drew?
Yeah.
I think we lost him.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think Hernandez has a lot of upside. He doesn't grade out as well, probably from an ownership and inside the distance, like round one, as Buckley does for me. But it'd be foolish of me to say you would take him out of your player pool. So yeah, I think Anthony Hernandez is fine. Shabazian is probably one of the lowest, obviously probably the lowest price that I'm going to have in my player pool. But it would be again kind of matching the field, looking for a first round knockout and trying to capitalize there. He's still going to get some ownership, so that kind of stinks. But that's where I see it. I mean, honestly, it's a pretty close in ownership, and I think just because that 9K is going to get spread out a bit after Natalia Silva. But yeah, I think that's exactly what you said. I think Hernandez looks like the favorite for good reason, probably with the takedowns, which I have a tough time quantifying. Has as big a ceiling as anybody, but Shabazian, I really do. I think he's a fine underdog. Honestly, I think his ownership is going to get up there a bit, but all I need is a win. Like I don't really need to leverage, a round one KO, but that's kind of the route that he would take. So I would have a little bit of Shabazian and a little bit of Hernandez, to be honest. I'm really not going to have a ton.
All right, kind of I think a contrarian take on Hernandez there.
I mean, he's good. It's just the other 9Ks. I think is where Eileen as far as the leverage. So yes, to Title's point though, the takedowns can ramp up, and it's almost unquantifiable. I mean, it could really escalate depending on how Shabazian is getting back up and getting knocked down over and over. So that's the issue with the upside. But honestly, I think
when you look at like inside the distance and round one finishing props, like the other 9K fighters, like that doesn't have the takedowns built into the upside there. Like I'm cheering for Fluffy. I want it to go 15 minutes, or you want a late third round finish, because I mean it's rinse and repeat just how he fights, which Vegas doesn't. It's hard to look at.
A Buckley KO doesn't count the same as like a submission by Hernandez, but he had like 17 takedowns or knockdowns in like the first round or something.
Those are the hardest fights, I think, for me. And it seems like Title 2 to fade the wrestlers that can really get the takedowns and the control time. You just can't. If they start doing that, you're just
the most tilting to watch of all time.
Oh, yeah.
It just goes on and on.
Yeah. You can always hear your underdog avoids the KO, but when they get those takedowns, it's hard to avoid the big score.
Yeah.
Let's get to the main event. Angela Hill and my girl Mackenzie Dern fighting here. Mackenzie Dern sitting around minus 190, minus 180, I suppose, for most places. Was this fight supposed to take place last week? Is that right?
Yeah, it was going to be last week. Then early in the week, they decided to push it to the main event. It was supposed to be three rounds last week. It would have been.
Okay, so moving parts here for sure. Dern, obviously the grappler, really good grappling base. She's been kind of up and down in the UFC, honestly. I don't know. I don't know if I'd call her a disappointment so far, but maybe hasn't quite lived up to the hype that she originally had. But still, fun fighter to watch. Angela Hill has been around forever. It's been on the wrong side, I think, of some very close decisions in the course of her career. A little bit of a clash of styles here, I would say, between these two. But, yeah, one that I do lean Dern. I do think she's the rightful favorite, but certainly wouldn't be shocked to see Angela Hill pull this one out. What are your thoughts here? Angela Hill, Mackenzie Dern title.
Yeah, I'm going to take the other side. I'll take the dog money. It's everything you said. It's a clash of styles. You have a submission ace in Mackenzie Dern, one-shot kill. She gets one takedown. Probably is over after that. But, man, she only has 11% takedown accuracy. Like, her striking is not good. It has improved since fight one, but, it's Angela Hill all day on the feet. Her takedown entries, because they don't respect the striking, they know it's coming. They aren't very good. When she does get you back, she just last fight Yao Zhenan in the 5th round. Like, she is very scary, but she didn't get the submission in that one. I think she probably won takedown. She probably does submit Angela Hill, but I'm not convinced she can get that takedown. Angela Hill, like you said, she's been here forever. She's 38. She still seems like she's in her prime. It's a young 38. There's no doubt about that. Has always shown good takedown defense. She seems just always disrespected. She's always the underdog. And, man, she's always in close fights. I think she's got robbed so many times. I know she'll fight for my dollar. I know that every fight starts on the feet, and I know she has good takedown defense. The other person doesn't have great takedown accuracy. You got to think she fights a smart game plan. She always has. She throws good volume on the feet. I think she can piece her up, use her movement, get a 2K savings, and not even that you really need the savings, but just say Dern gets a 3rd round submission. That's probably not optimal because, I'm guessing she didn't really get takedowns in round 1 or round 2. You go there, you get 85 points at 9,100. I like all these other people in the upper range more. So, yeah, I knew I was on Angela Hill the whole time. Angela Hill could be a favorite in this fight, and I still might even pick her. That's just my thoughts on it. I think it stays on the feet. Yeah, of course, Dern could submit her anytime. She can find something on the feet. She'll pull guard. She'll do whatever it takes to get to the mat. But, yeah, these odds feel a little wide for me. Give me Angela Hill in this one.
Makes sense. I don't want to question the commitment of Dern. She's in a UFC main event, for God's sake. But I wouldn't be shocked if Angela Hill is still fighting in the UFC when Mackenzie Dern hangs it up, whenever that may be. I just think it seems like Angela Hill just kind of lives for this, right? And so, when you get
Dern does have more outlets in her life if she wants to take out other careers. She could.
You know what I'm saying? No,
I do.
Yeah, it seems like Angela Hill, like you said. I don't feel 100% convinced Mackenzie Dern's going to fight for my dollar. To be honest, Angela Hill, she's going to come out and give it her all. Drew, let's throw it to you. Mackenzie Dern, Angela Hill.
Yeah, Angela Hill actually has pretty decent projections, and I think people are anticipating it going obviously 5 rounds, but Vegas actually has Dern inside the distance for whatever reason. So my question to the title would be in DC as well is if this got moved from a 3 by 5 minutes, would it be potentially a slow fight if it is on the feet? Like, could it go the first 2 rounds pretty sluggish and then maybe start to pick up or just kind of taper off at the end? So that would be my fear, is if this thing is not super active, it just looks like on the feet would be pretty slow, and then if Dern gets her down, then she's going to win.
Dern does have on the feet. She does have good pressure because she does want to try and push the takedown. And Angela Hill does throw good volume. I think it's like little over 5 significant strikes per minute or something. So I'm not really, to be honest, the 5 rounds I think is worse for Hill just because it gives Dern 10 extra minutes to find a takedown and find a submission.
Right.
I don't think really the pace. Angela Hill always has good cardio. I think Dern has good cardio too. Dern just likes pushing the pace and trying to get takedowns. So no, I think, especially how we talked about earlier, feels like every strike's deemed significant. I think if it's on the feet, you'll see good volume. Okay. Probably both sides, but mainly on the Hill side.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of indifferent. Like, I wouldn't have a ton of Dern just because of the other fighters up here. And I mean, I hate the 5 round for a women's fight. If it's a submission, there's just a lot of ifs that revolve around that. So I guess I'll ride with you guys. I mean, obviously Angela Hill, I mean, she's been a big name in the UFC for a long time. So I'm totally fine riding that down or up, whichever way it decides to go. But yeah, I won't have a ton of Dern relative to the other 9K fighters, and I'm fine with having a chunk of Hill. I mean, I guess around 25% is probably where I would grade it out.
Yeah, makes sense. That's Hill and Dern, and that's all 12 fights on the May 20th UFC Fight Night. Thanks for tuning in. As always, we really do appreciate it. One last reminder, hit the like, hit the subscribe on your way out if you haven't yet done so. It really does help us out. Allows us to bring you these shows free of charge each and every Friday. There's a UFC event. We'll be back next week, I believe. And yeah, that'll do it for us. Good luck tomorrow for title. For Drew, I'm DC. We'll check you next time.
I gotta hit this.